In the 7th year of our marriage, I spotted an unexpected lipstick mark in James's car. I remained silent for a long time that day, and upon returning home, I asked him for a divorce. He chuckled dismissively, over such a trivial matter? But this time, I didn't choose to stay silent or compromise as I had in the past. I looked straight into his eyes, my expression unusually resolute. A lipstick mark has appeared, and you call that trivial? When picking up my best friend, she frowned and asked me, "There's a lipstick mark in your car, have you been secretly putting on makeup in here?" I froze for a moment before shaking my head in denial. That's impossible, I never put on makeup in the car. James couldn't stand anyone leaving marks in his car, especially traces of women's cosmetics. We'd had several unpleasant arguments over this very issue. How could this be? When my best friend pointed out the lipstick mark to me, I actually saw a distinct lipstick stain on the passenger side. The lipstick mark was vividly colored, its edges slightly blurred with diffusion marks, as if it had just been accidentally pressed there, sitting alone in the corner. I feel utterly perplexed, completely clueless about how this lipstick mark got here. I tried hard to recall yesterday's events, but couldn't find any reasonable explanation. This made me feel somewhat embarrassed while simultaneously filling me with curiosity about the origin of that lipstick mark. After dropping my best friend home, I turned on the baby monitor camera installed in my car to check today's footage. Yet what shocked me was the appearance of an unfamiliar woman in the surveillance video. Sitting in the passenger seat, she coquettishly complained, "James, why did you ask me out for lunch so early? What if my supervisor notices I'm leaving work early?" James smiled tenderly, his voice dripping with affection. "I've already spoken to your supervisor. You're my person, he won't say anything to you." The beautiful woman continued to coquette while the man responded with gentle laughter. I stared blankly at this scene, a tumult of emotions churning in my heart. I remembered the early days of our relationship when I was still his superior. Yet he always treated me like a stranger, even when we bumped into each other on the street. He never initiated a greeting. After returning home, I had confronted him about it. He merely replied indifferently, "I don't want people saying I got here through connections." Back then, I thought he was just protecting our relationship, not wanting work to complicate things. However, with the birth of our child, he became increasingly busy, and I gradually retreated into the role of a full-time homemaker. He told me he wanted me to stay home and take care of our child and his mother while he took on the responsibility of earning money. For the sake of our family, I silently accepted this arrangement. And now, this unspoken dynamic between us has allowed him to open the door for another woman. Suddenly, I feel like an outsider in my own home. I don't know how to face this situation or how to move forward with our lives. Mandy opened her makeup bag and accidentally smeared her freshly applied lipstick on the car's interior while tidying up. She looked slightly flustered and quickly turned to James. "Oops, I accidentally got some on the car. Is this okay?" James glanced at it and reassured her with a smile, "No big deal, we'll just get the car washed later." Hearing this, Mandy's lips curled upward as she playfully chided, "You always know how to sweet-talk me." James smiled gently and said, "Is this what you call coaxing? Then later I'll take you to buy new lipstick, you can pick whatever you want." What followed was a scene of the man driving attentively while the woman occasionally acted coquettishly. I sat to the side, watching it all, feeling a mix of emotions. It reminded me of a previous experience. That day, I wanted to freshen up my makeup in the car to hide my exhaustion from taking care of my mother-in-law. When I explained it to James, he firmly refused, saying it was his principle. I was furious at the time and insisted on putting on makeup. But he simply told me to get out of the car, looked at me with disdain, and drove away. Left alone by the roadside, I stood amidst the scattered cosmetics he'd thrown at my feet. It was winter, and the biting wind cut through me as I waited endlessly for a taxi. By the time I reached the office, I was late and had my bonus deducted. Having been frozen too long in the snow, I fainted at work and was eventually taken to the hospital by a colleague. And now, James allows Mandy to apply makeup in his car without a care, not even minding when her lipstick smudges the upholstery. It suddenly dawned on me that all his principles were tailor-made for me. Only I, his wife, was forbidden to break them. His tenderness and tolerance were never meant for me. After long contemplation, I finally took out the divorce agreement from the depths of our home drawer. The agreement had been lying there quietly for so long, but I never had the courage to bring it out. In the end, it was my own stubbornness that held me back. I've liked him for as long as he secretly loved his first love. This man occupied my entire youth. From the moment I fell for him, I've been waiting for him to see me. Yet, I waited only to hear the news of him reuniting with his first love. Their romance was poetic and picturesque, the kind that inspires envy. But fate always seems to play cruel tricks. He parted ways with his first love due to his family's disapproval. Under the pressure of arranged meetings at home, he haphazardly chose to be with me. But after all these years of marriage, all I've received are countless principles, never his affection. The moment I first saw Mandy, I recognized her. She was that first love from years ago. Still beautiful, still coquettish, but this time, her target was my husband, James. I heard that when Mandy returned to the country, James personally went to the airport to pick her up. I heard she didn't have a job yet, so without hesitation, he introduced her to his company, even though she wasn't qualified for the position. The moment that made me feel most threatened was when we were taking care of our sick child, and James's phone suddenly rang. Flustered, he answered it, glanced at me, and then stepped out onto the balcony to take the call. I heard him gently telling the person on the other end to take their medicine and drink water, and in the end, he even personally went to deliver the medicine to her. By the time he came back, it was already late at night. Should I be grateful that he still knew to come home? But his fondness and favoritism toward Mandy were unmistakable, something I had never received, the warmth he reserved for outsiders. And now in this home, I feel like the outsider. I've tried to communicate with him, but his impatience grows with each attempt. During my tearful complaints, he even said things like, "If you're not happy, let's just get divorced." How could I possibly divorce? My child is still underage, my youth, my family, everything is tied to James. But James's attitude makes it clear he's serious. Terrified of breaking up our family, I no longer dare bring it up. However, as the child grew older, I realized he didn't love me, and this family would never be happy. Getting divorced over just a lipstick mark might sound somewhat absurd. But it was precisely this lipstick mark that completely shattered my defenses. After so many years of marriage, all I had gained were countless principles. Now, I don't want to wait any longer. For my own sake, and for my child, I've decided to let go. Even if this decision sounds a bit outrageous, it's something I must do. When I placed that divorce agreement in front of James, he was engrossed in browsing his phone. He took it absent-mindedly, a flicker of confusion flashing in his eyes. "What are you buying for the child again?" "Kids' clothes don't need to be that expensive," he said casually, his gaze still fixed on his phone. I took a deep breath and said firmly, "Not clothes. It's divorce papers. You should take a look." James suddenly looked up, his confusion turning to shock. "Divorce? Sophia, are you joking?" I calmly replied, "I'm not joking. There are some property division matters, and I'd like to hear your thoughts." Frowning, he began flipping through the agreement, a hint of disdain curling at the corners of his mouth. "Sophia, do you really think this can threaten me? I provided for your food and shelter, what more do you want?" I met his gaze squarely and said word by word, "I'm not trying to threaten you. I'm just fighting for what I deserve. And you seem to have forgotten, I gave up my job to take care of the children and the household full-time. What you call providing for me was actually bought with my own time and youth." James's expression darkened gradually. He slammed the divorce papers onto the table in anger. "What do you mean by this?" I gazed into the distance. "I saw the lipstick mark in your car." James snapped back with disdain. "Jealous? Stop making a scene. I'm not getting divorced over something this trivial." I gave a cold laugh. "Right, you wouldn't. But I would divorce over something this trivial. That lipstick mark in your car, I can't accept it." He froze, clearly not expecting me to bring this up. I continued, I know you might have your explanations and reasons. But for me, this is enough to make me decide to leave this home. I've thought it through. Without you, I might actually be better off. James remained silent for a moment before picking up the pen and signing his name on the divorce agreement. He looked at me coldly. Sophia, I hope you remember what you said today. Without me, you'll lose everything. I smiled faintly. Thanks for the reminder, but I'm already prepared. I picked up my bag and prepared to leave. James suddenly stood up and grabbed my hand. Are you really sure? Won't you reconsider? I pulled my hand away and answered firmly, no need. Let's go, and we might as well get the paperwork done. As James watched my retreating figure, a flicker of complex emotions passed through his eyes. I know he might have truly loved me once, but now we've reached the end. Obtaining a divorce certificate is far more complicated than a marriage license, and the 1-month cooling-off period feels unbearably long. Stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, James's car had already disappeared around the street corner. He didn't even leave me with a single glance. I quietly hailed a taxi and returned to what I once believed was our home, packing up my belongings. Only then did I realize, most of the items I'd acquired for this home over the years catered to his preferences, and now I see how pitifully few things I truly possess. In my haste, I didn't even have time to rent an apartment and had to stay in a hotel temporarily. Lying in bed, I gradually realized that leaving James wasn't as difficult as I had imagined. Before, I was always afraid of losing him, afraid of that bone-deep loneliness and despair. But now, I find myself not so sad after all. Instead, there's a sense of relief and lightness. I tried to recall every little detail between us, but those moments that once made my heart flutter and moved me now seem blurred and distant. I began to doubt whether I had truly loved him as deeply as I once thought. Perhaps I was just accustomed to loving him, accustomed to his presence in my life. My love had long been gradually worn away by his indifference and neglect. Just then, James's call came through. His voice was filled with anger and resentment. Sophia, do you really think you'll be better off without me? Let me tell you, you're wrong. Without me, you're nothing. You'll regret this decision. I listened quietly to his insults, feeling not the slightest ripple in my heart. I gently hung up the phone, turned it off, and let myself sink into the darkness. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of peace and freedom. I knew that no matter what the future held, I would face it bravely. Because I had learned to rely on no one but myself. That day, I had planned to spend a quiet afternoon lazily at home, enjoying that rare moment of leisure. However, the morning's tranquility was shattered by the sudden ringing of the phone. Still half asleep, I reached toward the nightstand, picked up my phone, and saw James's mother's name flashing on the screen. I pressed the answer button, and her familiar, warm voice immediately came through. Sophia, I'm so sorry to disturb you this early. Trying to shake off the drowsiness, I heard her continue, remind James that it's his uncle's 70th birthday, he must come home. Oh, and don't drink at the gathering. You should be the one to drive him back afterward. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the drowsiness. Mom, why didn't you just call James directly? She smiled, her tone carrying a hint of matter-of-factness. I was afraid he might still be sleeping. He's so busy with work every day, not as leisurely as you are at home. Her words sent a pang of bitterness through my heart. In her eyes, James's work was demanding, while I was just idling away with nothing to do. She would never understand how much effort I had put into this family, for James. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom, you might not know this, but James and I are already divorced. With that, I decisively hung up the phone, unwilling to listen to her ensuing accusations and complaints. The phone rang urgently, shattering the afternoon tranquility. Upon answering, James's voice carried a hint of accusation. Just because you're divorced, you think you can ignore the child? I paused briefly before replying. I already told Grandma to pick up the child. Yet Grandma denied this, and James outright accused me of lying. Filled with doubt, I decided to go to the kindergarten to see for myself. When I arrived, the scene before me left me stunned. James was standing with Mandy beside our son Nathan. The three of them stood together, looking so harmonious, as if they were the perfect family. As I approached, I heard my son say to Mandy, "Auntie is the best, I like Auntie the most, not like my mean mommy." Those words pierced my heart like needles. I remembered that rainy day when I was sick, and he left me alone to pick up Mandy, who had a stomachache. By the time he returned, it was already late at night, his clothes carrying the scent of unfamiliar perfume, even a lipstick stain on his shirt. And in Mandy's social media post, I saw a caption, "Kids are so sweet, he gave me his candy when he knew I wasn't feeling well." And now, when they saw me, James's first words were to scold me for not taking care of the child. My son, his evasive eyes clearly showed he was lying. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Didn't I ask Grandma to pick you up?" But my son remained silent, just lowering his head as if about to cry. My son, I knew he was lying. James seemed oblivious to our son's odd behavior and kept accusing me, "If you don't care for your own child, who will?" I watched the three of them standing together, and an indescribable emotion welled up in my heart. Do they even need me anymore? I turned to leave, but then I heard my son suddenly run over and hug my leg. "Mom, don't go." I lied, I only said that because I wanted to go out and play. Hearing this, I could no longer hold back my tears. Without a word, I turned and walked away, not looking back. I never wanted to get involved in this family's affairs again. James's mother came to where I was staying, glaring at me with a sharp tone. "You woman, why on earth won't you come home? Why can't you be considerate of my son? You really are a home-wrecking vixen." I sneered coldly. She had truly shown me what it meant to be unreasonable. All these years, my health had been poor. James, too, was always avoiding reality, and we had never had a child. It became a thorn in her heart, and she constantly found ways to make trouble for me. To ensure that James and I could successfully bear a son, my mother-in-law pressured me in every possible way. She would say, "With your health like this, you can't even support him in his career, how can you fail to bear a child too? How will he face our ancestors? How will the family bloodline continue?" Each time, she would adopt the tone of someone who had seen it all, earnestly advising me, "Without your own child to stabilize your marriage, your family may not hold together in the future. You must believe me, I only want what's best for you." In addition to psychological pressure, my mother-in-law also monitored my every move under the guise of keeping an eye on me. Whenever I had even slight contact with outsiders, she would scold me harshly, insisting that men outside were no good and that I should stay home to recuperate. In such an environment, I grew increasingly depressed and unwilling to communicate with others. But my mother-in-law seemed unsatisfied. She even collected various superstitious folk remedies and forced me to try them. For example, eating only meat for 49 consecutive days, or only vegetables for 49 days. Even more absurdly, she heard from somewhere that eating celery could help conceive a boy, so for 3 months straight, celery was a constant presence on my dining table. Yet she knew full well that I detested celery, the mere smell of it made me nauseous. But James sided with my mother-in-law, and together they coaxed me, "We just want our own child. Can't you endure it a little?" Under their persuasion, I forced myself to eat the celery, retching until I nearly vomited bile each time. Even so, deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was wrong. Yet whenever I hesitated, they would subtly imply that perhaps this method really worked. But in truth, it didn't. The 3 months of torment finally ended, but my physical condition didn't improve because of it. James's so-called waiting for my body to be ready to have another child was nothing but an excuse. He never loved me at all. How could I expect him to want to create life with me? Later, they seemed to have given up on the idea of me conceiving naturally. Instead, they took me to a charity organization and adopted a child, the Nathan I'm raising now. It was only after we adopted Nathan that she toned down her behavior slightly. I used to think she simply liked children. But now I understand, she just wanted her family line to continue. As for whether I had children or not, she couldn't have cared less. But even with Nathan around, her torment never ceased. She would always find fault with me in various ways, constantly applying psychological pressure. She told me to be more considerate of James's hardships and take better care of the family. She even said that since I had no income and was entirely dependent on James, I should know my place. I took a deep breath, suppressing the fury in my heart. I knew that half of this situation was my own fault. I had loved the wrong person. But that didn't mean I could tolerate their deceit and malicious torment. I looked coldly at James's mother, a mocking smile curling at the corners of my lips. You can all live happily ever after as one big happy family. But remember this, from now on, we have nothing to do with each other. With that, I called security and had them thrown out. But no sooner had I gotten rid of one problem than another arrived. Mandy appeared before me with Nathan, wearing a saintly expression as if she truly believed she was here to save the world. I know you're jealous of me, but the child is innocent. He's missed you terribly, can't you be the bigger person and let go of your resentment? Mandy said. I found it utterly laughable, a homewrecker standing before me, preaching about magnanimity. It was quite possibly the most ridiculous joke I'd ever heard. I gazed coldly at the mother and son pair, my tone resolute. Now you can taste the bitter fruits of your own making. I've been savoring them for all these years. Though I had devotedly mentored Nathan, he would still falsely accuse his own mother just to go play. Expecting help now from this shameless stepmother or that biological father who abandoned his wife? What a joke. I once again had security escort them out, wanting no further entanglement with these people. Yet they persisted like stubborn cockroaches, emerging wave after wave, refusing to give up. Finally, James approached me. I expected him to spout more of his laughable rhetoric. Yet, the first words out of his mouth were, "Next week is your mother's birthday. Since we're not divorced yet, let me accompany you." I had to admit, James played this move quite brilliantly. After setting aside love and maternal affection, the only thing that could still stir my heart was my family. I truly didn't want to worry my mother. When I got married, they had already been heartbroken for me. I regretted not heeding their advice back then, stubbornly loving only this man. Now, I couldn't let them worry about me again. But that didn't mean I would compromise with James. I looked at him with cold eyes, my voice dripping with sarcasm. So when brute force didn't work, you're trying soft tactics now? Too bad, that won't work on me. You can go if you want, as long as you can get through the door. But I won't be taking you there. After saying this, I turned and went back to my room, not wanting to spare another glance at that man. On the day of my birthday, I returned home alone. Though I was by myself this time, my family didn't ask too many questions, which came as a relief. I hugged my mother tightly, it had been so long since I'd seen her, and nestled into her arms like a child. This, I thought, is what real family feels like, where I can express my feelings without reservation. For some reason, I felt my nose tingling with emotion, and coming home only made me want to cry even more. Afraid my mother would notice and worry during the birthday celebration, I quietly slipped into the bathroom to touch up my makeup. Yet when I returned, I was shocked to find that James had actually managed to get in. I glanced at my older brother across the room. I had specifically discussed this with him beforehand. He's always been so reliable, how could he let this person in to cause trouble now? My brother shrugged helplessly, as if to say there was nothing he could do. I glared at James in frustration, had he pulled some trick? But before I could react, my mother stepped forward first. Our family may not be from an aristocratic background, but we still had quite a few guests. My mother's actions undoubtedly drew everyone's attention. Dressed in more luxurious attire than usual, she stepped onto the stage and solemnly announced to everyone, "Today is not only my birthday, but also the day my daughter regains her single status." This statement caused an uproar. In everyone's understanding, their only daughter, that is, me, was already married. At this moment, the one with the most unpleasant expression was undoubtedly James. He thought our family had let him in because there might still be room for reconciliation. Little did he expect my mother to publicly humiliate him right to his face. "What do you mean by this, mother-in-law?" James asked with an unpleasant expression. The mother gave him a cold glance and said sharply, "Don't call me mother-in-law. I don't have a son-in-law like you." Pleased with the reaction of the crowd, the mother then ordered the security guards to forcibly remove James. Outnumbered and powerless, James had no choice but to leave the banquet in disgrace. Instead, the mother turned to hold my hand and said, "What a pity his parents didn't come. Otherwise, I could have vented all your grievances for you." I was somewhat moved, knowing that my mother must have realized I'd been wronged and was standing up for me. No wonder even my reliable eldest brother couldn't stop James. This was their carefully prepared surprise all along. I felt my eyes grow moist as guilt overwhelmed my mind. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom." Though I only said those 3 words, I knew countless apologies were owed. Today I ruined Mother's birthday celebration, and all the love they've showered upon me over the years. Forgive me for failing to see someone's true nature, for destroying the precious daughter you've nurtured for so long. In the end, Mother couldn't hold back and hugged me tightly in her arms. I heard her say, "Come home if you're wronged. This place will always be waiting for you." I nodded vigorously in my mother's embrace. This was truly my home. This place that gave me freedom and let me grow wild was the home that raised me. Not that cold, lifeless grave that only knew how to force-feed me celery. After staying at home for a while, I felt much healed. Then, I gathered my strength and resumed my career. Not long after, a letter arrived at my home. When I opened it, I found an honorary advisor invitation from an international club. Looking at the invitation, a surge of excitement welled up in my heart. Though I've been away from that arena for quite some time, I believe I will return there as a better version of myself. The storm may still rage on, but I'm no longer afraid. Because I know, no matter how many difficulties lie ahead, I have the strength to face and overcome them. I will make those who once hurt me see that I can not only stand up again but stand taller and steadier. After enduring a long struggle and inner conflict, James finally signed the divorce papers. Yet, surprisingly, he did not choose to spend the rest of his life with Mandy. This decision, skillfully propelled by his lawyer, quickly became the talk of the town, turning James's private life into the subject of public ridicule. After his divorce, James not only had to face the reality of his assets being significantly divided, but also suffered a heavy blow in the stock market, plunging his career into a low point. Yet, compared to the setbacks in his career, the loss in his marriage seemed even more profound. Mandy once questioned him why he didn't choose to spend the rest of his life with her, to which James calmly replied, "I never thought of marrying you." Unwilling to accept this, Mandy pressed further, "Then why were you so good to me? Even letting your children acknowledge me?" James took a deep breath and said slowly, "You are all part of my past. Right now, I just want to cherish the person before me. I've realized my past mistakes, and I want to give myself a chance to make amends. Since I could make Sophia fall in love with me once, I can definitely make her fall in love with me a second time." Mandy thought James was completely insane, but she couldn't shake his determination. James was full of confidence in himself, convinced that my love for him had never changed. Given enough time, he believed I would surely return to his side. He recalled the past when I would have risked my life for him, and all those years of secretly admiring him. How could I possibly let go so easily? However, at that very moment, the words, "Have you not been taking your medicine lately?" struck James like a hammer blow to the heart. He frantically searched his home for that box of pills, but his splitting headache made it impossible to remember what medication it was. As he searched, the pain in his head grew nearly unbearable. Seeing this, Mandy feared he might hurt himself and hastily fled the scene. In the end, it was James's mother who rushed home and called their family doctor. Meanwhile, as I was sorting through old belongings, I unexpectedly came across a box of medication. The client must have mistakenly brought this over, thinking it belonged to me, without realizing the truth. After all, in the eyes of others, I've always been a walking medicine cabinet. Staring at the sticky note on that pillbox, it meticulously recorded the dosage and timing for each medication. I couldn't help but recall James' habit of constantly forgetting to take his medicine. And lately, it seemed he truly hadn't been taking them on time for quite a while. With a soft sigh, I tossed the pillbox into the trash. What did it have to do with me anyway? Trash belongs in the garbage bin. Meanwhile, James lay drugged in bed, still calling my name in his dreams. A tear slid from the corner of his eye, as though something had been lost forever. The days after the divorce, I had expected nothing but silence. Unexpectedly, James's relentless pursuit came flooding in like a tide. He kept sending flowers, calling, and even proposed taking me on a trip, hoping to rekindle the old flame between us. What surprised me even more was that he remembered the racetrack we had both loved so much. He planned to spend a fortune to buy it and transform it into a private racetrack, just to make me smile. Yet, to me, these gestures were merely manifestations of his unwillingness to let go and his stubbornness, rather than true love. I firmly rejected all his invitations, and when I heard about the racetrack, I even smiled and said to him, "Sorry, James, but you're a step too late, I've already bought that racetrack." My words pierced James's heart like a sharp sword. His face turned pale upon hearing them, and a flicker of shock and disappointment flashed in his eyes. After Mandy seduced James, he refused to marry her, treating her only as a sister. This filled Mandy with immense anger and resentment. She felt played and deceived by James. Determined to reclaim what was rightfully hers, she resolved to seek revenge. She began making unreasonable demands of James, insisting he give her half of his wealth. She even went so far as to exploit her status as the child's aunt, kidnapping James' child to use as leverage. Faced with Mandy's outrageous actions, James refused to compromise and instead chose to call the police. He hired a lawyer, determined to see Mandy face legal consequences. After Mandy's behavior was exposed, those who had been deceived by her came forward one after another, revealing her true nature. They recounted how Mandy had used her beauty and wit to manipulate their emotions and swindle them out of money. For a time, Mandy became known as a gold-digging woman in everyone's eyes, and her reputation was completely ruined. However, she refused to accept defeat so easily. She went to James, begging him to save her. But James coldly told her that she had brought this upon herself. Furious, Mandy felt utterly abandoned by James. So, she decided to take even more drastic action. She leaked confidential information she had obtained from James' company executives, accusing his company of tax evasion. This move plunged James' company into crisis as well. James's mother, upon hearing this news, wailed daily at the company's entrance, unable to accept such a blow to her son and the company. Meanwhile, my friend, who knew about our relationship, discussed the matter and mocked their outrageous behavior. He said, "Look at this man, he's blind to have missed you. Let him live with regret." In this frenzy of revenge, Mandy lost too much. She lost James's trust and love, her reputation, and her dignity. She finally realized that true revenge isn't about making others suffer, but freeing oneself from pain. In the end, Mandy chose to face reality and accept legal consequences. She hoped to make up for her past mistakes through her actions, and also wished James could forgive her. As for James, after going through all this, he came to understand more clearly what true love and responsibility meant. He chose to forgive Mandy and loved me even more, but the relationships between everyone could never return to how they were before. After that, he never bothered me again, vanishing from my life as if overnight. Relishing the peace, I threw myself wholeheartedly into my career. After leaving James, my health actually improved significantly, as if freed from the shackles of that marriage. I regained my vitality and confidence. This failed marriage has made me realize even more that being true to oneself is what matters most. If you lose yourself, the world will be dark. No matter how many people are by your side, none can fill the void within. While focusing on my career, I've also started paying attention to others' growth. I love racing, so I decided to provide a domestic club platform for children who share this passion. Here, they can pursue their dreams and realize their own worth. Now, I am not only the honorary mentor of this club but also its biggest financial backer. I want to be the wind beneath their wings as they soar toward their dreams. Every time I see those dazzling players on the track, I feel immense joy and pride. They are like sparks in my heart, burning with passion for racing and igniting hope for the future. I know I have moved on from that failed marriage and started a new life. As for James, perhaps he is still hiding in some corner, or maybe he has fallen in love with another woman. But none of this concerns me anymore. I only hope that all kind-hearted people can soon find their own path, step out of the shadows and face life anew. James' perspective. From the moment Sophia and I divorced, my heart became like leaves swept by autumn winds, desolate and bleak. I admit, the return of my first love did stir some emotions within me. But I haven't revealed any of those complicated feelings to Sophia. In my heart, she no longer seems to be the person with whom I can share all my joys and sorrows. Every time I pass by that familiar racetrack, I can't help but recall Sophia's lightning-fast figure speeding by. Back then, she shone as brightly as the sun, irreplaceable in my heart. Yet as time passed, that radiance seemed to gradually dim, replaced by the growing distance between us. I thought it was just a momentary outburst of emotion from her. After all, we'd weathered many storms together before. But when I discovered my study had been disturbed and my diary had vanished without a trace, I finally understood. This time, it was truly over. On the other end of the phone, Sophia's voice was cold and resolute as she said she had seen every little thing between us. At that moment, I felt as if I could hear the sound of my heart breaking. I knew something was slipping away from me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I knew I could no longer evade or explain anything. When Sophia demanded that I leave with nothing in exchange for returning the diary, though my heart ached, what I felt most was helplessness and acceptance. I tried to salvage things, to steer our marriage back on track. Yet, when I saw the disgust in Sophia's eyes, I knew there was no going back. I had no choice but to follow her demands, step by step, toward an ending I had never imagined. The days after the divorce, I drifted through life like a walking corpse. I tried to numb myself with work, but whenever night fell and silence enveloped me, memories of the time I spent with Sophia would flood my mind, leaving me sleepless. Meanwhile, Mandy's erratic actions caught me completely off guard. She kidnapped my son and reported my company for tax evasion. This series of blows left me scrambling to keep up. Yet what pained me even more was how frequently news of Sophia reached my ears. She had opened a racing club, helping children with dreams chase after them. I saw her on TV, radiant, dazzling. I knew she had moved on from our past, while I remained stuck in place, unable to take a step forward. At this moment, I finally woke up. This beautiful dream that belonged to me has completely shattered.